That creates this organic virality behind the music, right?
You could have 1 out of 500 songs that have over 1 billion streams on Spotify.
The various ways that this can snowball into something greater just keep adding up.
The next global pop icon, think Dua Lipa, think Taylor Swift.
1 billion streams, 1 billion with a B.
John, what do you think of this song that we're talking about today?
Tell me who the artist is. Tell me what the song is.
We have a special hit song from Tate McRae. Tate McRae is a 20-year-old artist from Canada. And the song that we're talking about today, which is in this listing itself, You Broke Me First. And this was the song that really just took her to the next level. She released a few songs before this that have now accumulated some in the 9-figure streams on Spotify. But this one, released in peak quarantine, is the one that really set the tone for her climb to the top of the charts now, has over 1.3 billion streams on Spotify today, and actually reached number 17 on the Billboard charts. This song is an emotional ballad, so it's a very relatable topic for her young female audience. The music video itself, you have to check it out. It's really cool. It was shot all on her iPhone. She literally taped it to the back of her mom's car, and someone drove her mom's car in reverse while she was literally just walking behind it. But this was during the middle of quarantine when no one could shoot big videos. She wasn't even signed to a record label yet. She got all this done by herself, super self-resourceful. Like I said, 1.3 billion streams on Spotify, hundreds of millions on other platforms. Most likely reached its bottom in the streaming earnings in the past, 6 months or so. It's still going viral on TikTok.
When was this song released? Do you know that, Drew?
So it was actually released in late summer of 2020.
So that lines up exactly with what we would expect to see for especially a new song and a streaming heavy song. When we look at the financials, 2020 third quarter is when everything starts. And in the next year from there, we have a huge spike. It's really, really common for new releases. You have the new release and people get excited about it, gets picked up on radio stations, it gets played on new release streaming playlists, all over the place. We see a huge bulk in the early life of most songs. That's exactly the behavior we see here. So a 2020 release, that's exactly what I expect to see. In fact, in those early releases, I would say close to 90% of the earnings came from radio, which is, new song, getting a lot of radio play. Makes perfect sense. Now, since then, the earnings have come down. We're talking about from $140,000 in a quarter to about $20,000, which is still great, but it's a big drop. Also very, very common for a song that's a couple of years old. Now, Drew, you were saying that this song's about reached its valley of earnings since it's reached its peak. You're right. When we look at the financials, quarter over quarter, year over year, we see the steady decline. We see the earnings shift from radio to streaming more. Again, exactly what we'd expect to happen with the catalog. And just in the most recent 3 quarters, we're beginning to see the up and down movement and fluctuations in earnings rather than a pure down shift. And that's when we start to determine whether or not we're in the quote unquote tail of the royalty earnings, when we start to see stable earnings period over period. Now, that's a great place to be at the acquisition point for a catalog, especially knowing what's going on, A, in the world as it relates to streaming, and B, in the world as it relates to the artist, right? So first, streaming, right? As everyone knows, streaming's growing. Spotify is getting into more and more people's hands. More people are getting smartphones, getting better access to music listening, which is how royalties are created.
This song is almost 4 years old at this point, but it's starting to ramp back up in streaming activity, which is super cool. And I think most notably on Spotify is a place that we can really get a good look at exactly where and why that is happening. Spotify has the strongest editorial ecosystem in the music industry. They have all these editorial playlists where they're doing things from genre-specific playlists to mood and activity-specific playlists. And this song, You Broke Me First, is at its peak total playlist reach, meaning all the followers of all the editorial playlists it's on, 30 plus playlists right now, have a total reach of almost 105 million people, and it's continuing to climb. Let me just read you off some of the notable playlists that this song is in right now. So some of them, for instance, are Songs to Sing in the Car, 11 million followers, Chill Hits, 9 million followers, Soft Pop Hits, 7 million followers, Life Sucks, 4 million followers, Woman of Pop, 3 million followers. But the cool thing about these playlists, the 3 last ones particularly, are that this really shows a floor and like a base, in that Spotify really places an emphasis on these catalog songs, which it defines as anything released more than a year plus ago. So the last three playlists that accumulate to over 14 million followers, the song's been in those playlists for almost 2 years now. And, being in a playlist for that long with that many followers really shows a nice, consistent floor of streams per day. And that's going to equate to earnings on a consistent basis going forward, which is super cool. Also, you have the This Is Tate McRae playlist. As she's becoming an even bigger global superstar and icon, this playlist week over week, a year ago today, it was getting 450 new followers a day. Guess how many it's getting today now? 2.5 thousand followers per day. Crazy growth and continuing to rise. It has so much more room to grow and climb. And this song is the number 4 song on the playlist right now. And as it stays towards that top peak position in the playlist, it's going to get a lot more streams than songs at the bottom. And because it has that billion plus streams, it's going to remain a mainstay in the playlist. Just looking at some of the, activity across the board on different platforms the past few months, from June to August 2023, I really think that is when it sort of hit its bottom across different platforms. Shazam's hit its bottom in February of 2023. Genius profile visits for the actual lyrics of the song hit its bottom in August. Monthly Spotify streams hit its bottom in July, and it's seen a monthly uptick of 37% from last month to August. She has over 12 million followers across social media, showing it's deeper than just fans appreciating one song specifically. They're really in it for the artist herself and want to continue to be a part of the rise of her entire career. They're not just in it for one hit song, they're in it for her. And because she has been this big online presence for so many years, back to her dance days where she literally has dance competition videos from when she was 8 years old on her YouTube channel. She went to school at 8 years old at one of the most prestigious ballet schools in the whole country of Canada. She was doing YouTube since like a very young kid. So she grew up with her audience, which helped establish her when she started putting on music. She was actually in the show So You Think You Can Dance back in 2017, earning a 3rd place finish. And she first dropped her first original song on her YouTube channel, and it racked up 40 million views in a short time period, which just set her on this remarkable trajectory. She has this more authentic one-to-one connection with fans that a lot of other artists do. And because of this, they have this nostalgia factor with all the music that she's released, which will, create lasting memories for the lifetime of a fan. And fans will, hold on to songs like this one forever.
When we're looking at any catalog, it's important to consider the actual content itself and who's behind it. And everything that you're describing is the strong foundation of a catalog. And that's what makes staying power, which is what really we're all looking for when considering royalty catalogs. We want the consistency. We want the longevity. All of that comes from a strong fan base and that consistent listenership. And the only way that that's indoctrinated into a person is through that nostalgia, through that deeper connection, that authenticity that you're talking about. That's where that all begins. And that's where we as investors get to capitalize on that artist's growth and their success through listings like the one we have on Royalty Exchange right now, which again, is like right at the peak of, hey, this is starting to settle. There's growth in the horizon. Let's take a closer look.
John, I know that, the music industry is a little complicated when it comes to the accounting and, different sources being delayed and whatnot. If you look at the listing right now, you'll see it looks like it's missing some revenue in the past few quarters. Can you just tell people a little bit like why they may be seeing that and why maybe some of the international sources are a little bit delayed, for instance?
There's a couple reasons for that. So first of all, for the royalty reporting, there's inherently a delay. Even with the US, a lot of these companies will pay out the royalties that were generated 6 months prior, right? And then for international reporting, it'll be even further delayed than that. So when we look at the earnings themselves and compare the international next to the US domestic, oftentimes you'll see, all right, here's the big spike in US domestic radio. And then, a couple periods later, you'll see a big spike in international radio, which would have been the same time period, right? The same release, but the reporting happens differently. There also could be instances where some international society might not make the deadline of reporting. And so those payments may come at a later distribution period. We can actually see that in action in these earnings when we look at the German contribution for the streaming, which is a pretty big contributor to these earnings. The second highest overall behind the United States. But just looking in 2021, they pay in third quarter, but not in the fourth. And then in 2022, in the first, second, and third periods, but then not the fourth. So they don't make every single distribution period when, other countries might, and other countries might pay in only one versus all four. So that kind of inconsistency with the reporting can make the international royalties a little bit hard to distinguish, but it's still coming is the ultimate point. Especially when, we're looking on a look forward basis and the tour that she has active and her wide international fan base. It's pretty safe to assume that those payments are still in the books, making their way through their various systems before it gets reported out and ultimately paid out.
I think that's really helpful for potential investors who may just be a little bit confused about the different revenue sources in music royalties and how they get paid out in different time periods.
Also, Tate is currently doing an international tour. Isn't that right, Drew?
People are getting excited for this tour that's coming up in April, going all across the world from Europe to the United States to Australia and New Zealand. She's really hitting all the markets that are listening to her music. And with such strong social presence as well, all of her performances are just going to create this cyclical loop of consistent streaming, not only before the concerts with all the fans really anticipating and gearing up to go see her because she has that dance background. And we've already seen from some of her performances on shows like SNL and The Late Night Show with Jimmy Kimmel. A lot of her performances are literally performance art. You can look at artists like Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Rosalia, where they go on tour and their streams increase because not only are people listening before and after the shows, but they're taking their own social media videos. And a lot of time, these organic fan-made videos of their performance art itself is creating a whole new leg of streaming consumption for a whole new audience and repeated listens by the same people that are her core fan base. So John, like you said, the international tour that's coming up, it's going to be big time for the streaming and also the public performance. And it's reminding a lot of people of like the early 2000s pop stars, like the Britney Spears, the Christina Aguileras. And she really started out growing up with her audience towards a younger demographic, but she's sort of shifting to this more mature sound. And we're seeing how she can grow with her audience that grew up with her, but also bring in new fans who maybe thought her music was a little too young for them at the time, but now see this more mature look and sound and really gravitate towards her as the next like global superstar.
So you got it exactly right with how a tour impacts an artist's earnings, right? So there's the existing fan base who are streaming the music because they love it. They're streaming it in anticipation of going to the concert and after a little bit of nostalgia from the show. But those people share that music with their friends. They invite their friends to these concerts. They add them to their own playlists because that's what they're listening to. And so, especially with the social media presence that you've been bringing up a couple times, that creates this organic virality behind the music, right? This organic discovery that happens that just raises the tide that lifts all boats of royalties, right? People are streaming it through their TikTok. They're streaming it through Spotify, through whatever discovery mediums they have there. And then, just the shows in town. People go to the concert and learn more. So you have the adoption of new fans and the existing fans in a growing fan base, all positive and forward-looking earnings for the catalog, which is important, right? We want to see a nice return as an investor buying this catalog. We want to know that there's promise on the horizon. And this is the kind of promise that we look for when we're analyzing any catalog.
When we're talking about this international appeal, she really is covering all the bases with a super diverse and versatile audience. A lot of her core fan base is international, lots in Europe, lots in Australia. And these are really high payout streaming countries as well. Everyone knows that TikTok is the big catalyst for music discovery and consumption in today's day and age. You really see a lot of strong growth in songs when it's just organic growth itself from users. And one thing that's super cool about this song is it has the 2.4 billion views across sounds on TikTok all time, with over 5 million video shares, which is just mind-boggling. What's even crazier is that in the past month alone on TikTok, John, I don't know if you know this, but there's the official sound directly from the artist, right? It's like the song you hear on Spotify, but then users can create their own original sounds and the TikTok content ID can map it to the song itself, the official sound. There's 3 original user-generated sounds on TikTok right now that in the past month, one has over 11,000 videos created and 2 have 6,000 videos created each. So this song is still getting even more activity today, and it's seeing a strong uptick. And because TikTok just added this really cool feature called add to your preferred music service, where you can see a song and add it directly to Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Pandora, whatever your preferred DSP is, we're about to see a lot stronger conversion directly from TikTok discovery to streaming on DSPs. And because this song has already had insane growth on the platform and fans are still making their own original sounds and they're still blowing up today, almost 4 years after its release, this could generate a second, third, who knows how many legs because of this platform. Because she is such a strong presence herself on the platform, if one of these sounds take off, she could post her own video to it. That could just absolutely go crazy and blow it up even further.
Let's talk about the compound effect that we're looking at here, right? Talking about fans going to her concert, getting excited about it. Maybe they make a TikTok of the concert itself, right? And then there's all the reach that people have through all those various TikTok videos through their own networks. You have organic discovery through those. You have organic discovery through people creating their own sounds because they like the sound. You have organic discovery from the actual concert itself. I mean, it just the various ways that this can snowball into something greater just keep adding up. And again, we're talking about future life. We're talking about foundations of a strong royalty catalog. And this seems to have all the hallmarks. Now, we're not financial advisors, right? We can't say, hey, this is a good asset. This is a bad asset. But what we can say is, hey, look at the signals. Look at what's happening in the world. Look at the data. There's a lot to like here.
This is an artist that's just going to continue to grow. Like, she really has her sights set on being the next global pop icon. Think Dua Lipa, think Taylor Swift, artists of that nature. She's going to be a mainstay in pop culture and pop music for years to come. She's only 20 years old, which is just absurd. Like, this song came out when she was 17. And the fact that it's still streaming like crazy and she's going on her first international tour, the sky's the limit for not only this song, but her entire career. And we're super excited to be able to have this one in front of potential investors and for you personally to potentially get it into your portfolio.
I mean, 1 billion streams. 1 billion with a B. That is so many.
Yeah, that's freaking epic. I mean, like I said in one of our last videos, Spotify has this really cool playlist called the Billions Club. And there's only like 500 songs in it total. And this is one of them. So you could have 1 out of 500 songs that have over 1 billion streams on Spotify, which is just crazy.
I mean, Billions Club, right?
It's a milestone in itself. That's bragging rights.
Cool. So where do we find the listing, Drew? Tell us.
So you can go find the direct listing below in the description. We'll link the exact link to it. And you can find our other listings as well that are live at royaltyexchange.com. If you're a musician, we work with artists, producers, songwriters, anyone in the mix who's been part of a song making process. If you want a free catalog valuation, you can get one at royaltyexchange.com. And if you're interested in, potentially selling some of the royalties of your songs as well, you can reach us there also.
If you're an investor and you want to learn more, shoot us an email, chat to Drew, chat to me. We're here to answer your questions.
John, this one's been super special and I'm really excited for the next one. And it's been real, y'all. And we'll catch you next time.
We'll see you guys. Till the next one.
Peace.